Здравствуйте, доброе утро. Меня зовут Тиффани Спрейг. Я говорю по-русски чуть-чуть, но сегодня я говорю по-английски because I can understand English a bit better. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Can you see me? I'm pretty short. Sorry. Forgive me, I went to bed at 4 this morning and woke up to come here to be with you today, so I might be a little woozy. Okay, so why are we here? We're doing the Skillathon today, and I'm here to talk about systems thinking. Who in the room has heard of systems thinking already? Raise your hand. Okay, a few people. Okay, so we're living in pretty different times, turbulent times. We are in a digital economy, there's climate change, we have conflicts, we have the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's threatening the world and the challenges are very complex and dynamic. So we need out-of-the-box thinking, right? New ways of thinking to address these challenges. In this increasingly digital world, we are more connected than ever. And our problems are also very connected. And our solutions are interconnected. So let's take a look at the pandemic, yeah? It impacted all of us across the world. The way we lived and worked for 2 years, and we're still dealing with the aftermath. Sorry. We know, yes, we're all still dealing with the pandemic. It impacted all of us. Supply chain shortages are impacting people's livelihoods across the globe, for example. And crises in various regions are impacting our energy supply, and not just in the way that we use it, but how do we regulate energy politically, economically, and socially. So we know these challenges impact people differently too. And we know that those who are already in vulnerable positions are impacted even more. So we need to work in ways that protects everyone, leaving no one behind. So I'm here today to share with you what we at UNDP have learned about tackling these challenges through a systems approach. How we can zoom out to not just look at the problem in one dimension, but in a more holistic way. And how our challenges are impacted by a range of factors, some that are really, that we can see up front and some that are hidden. So I hope you find this presentation useful in your own work, and perhaps you do this already, or perhaps you can identify additional ways to broaden the scope of your work, source new partners. Okay, so we have about 20 minutes or so to get an overview of systems thinking. It's a pretty broad topic, so I'm just gonna go over the what and the how really briefly. So systems thinking. Systems thinking provides more of an interdisciplinary approach to investigating, understanding, and responding to complexity. It also helps to provide a common language, right? So sometimes when one person sees an issue one way, they use different words for it, say, than maybe their friend or maybe their parent. They're looking at the same issue, but they interpret it differently. So systems thinking helps to create this common language. So when we speak about the problem, we're actually using the same words, right? Systems thinking is also a tool to look just beyond 2 dimensions. So to overlay sort of these issues maps upon each other, to see linkages, interdependencies, and also leverage points, and to design experiments that will help us learn more about what kinds of solutions work and what kinds don't. Our accelerator labs in the UNDP are very experts at this. So like my colleagues Aijan and Yersio, that's what their department does, right? They're doing out-of-the-box thinking. They're looking at problems from different perspectives. Systems thinking is also a way of thinking, right? So it's not just in your research, but it's just the way we think day to day in everyday life. It also recognizes this circular nature of the world that we live in. We have this awareness that the role of structure in creating the conditions we face, and there's also recognition that there are powerful laws of system operating that we are unaware of, a realization that there are consequences to our actions that we might not even be aware of. Oops. So these are some of the characteristics of what systems thinking looks like. So if you're going to do systems thinking, it requires curiosity, clarity, compassion, choice, and courage. This approach includes the willingness to see a situation more fully, to recognize that we are interrelated, to acknowledge that there are often multiple interventions to a problem, and to champion interventions that may not be obvious or even that popular. So let's think of a really easy example of what a system, right? Our body is a system. Say you get headaches. You're not going to just focus on the pain and how you're going to get rid of the pain. You focus on, what did you eat today? How much sleep are you getting? How much water are you drinking? All these different behaviors are triggers for headaches. And how much you've eaten, drunk, and slept may vary day to day because of the circumstances. So when you look at the problem, you look at the whole entire system, not just the issue at hand, not just the one thing that is very obvious and up front and center. So to make this a little bit more concrete, I was going to take you through a case study on what systems thinking looked like for me and my team when we designed the STEM for All platform. How many of you have seen the STEM for All platform website? Raise your hand. Okay, 2. Okay, great. I will send you the link because it might be something of interest to you. So the STEM for All platform is sort of this one-stop shop. It's like an Amazon, really, of everything you need to know and have on how to increase gender equality in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And so this platform can be found. It's in English and in Russian right now. So this is our solution. I'm going to take you back to how we use the systems thinking to approach the challenges and why we came up with the STEM for All platform. So our research problem was, why are women underrepresented in STEM jobs and leadership in Europe and Central Asia, and why does it matter? So we did hear earlier that gender equality is very important, right? And we did hear in Kazakhstan that there are a lot of improvements made. There's a lot more women in STEM. But there's still not a lot of women in power, like decision-making roles and in leadership roles. And so we still want to know, why does that matter? And so the way that we did this is we did issue mapping. So that is one tool that you can use for systems change. So systems thinking provides this, like I said, an interdisciplinary approach. And so we took a look at all the different factors. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. We took a look at all the different factors, not just, women and girls, they don't have confidence in STEM. So how are we going to boost their confidence? We looked at, politically, in the politics sphere, the social sphere, and the economic sphere, what is impacting this situation, the status of women and of girls, the status of women and girls in STEM. So this is a template here, and I can share this with you. And there are a lot of different tools, actually. This one is just the issues mapping, but there's the iceberg model. I don't know if you've heard of the iceberg model, but I can show a picture of it. It's basically, when you see the iceberg, you see all the problems that are visible, and then underneath in the water, you map out all the things that may not be present. This one is called Framing the System. And here you come together, you talk about, like, how do people perceive the problems, who are the relevant actors, what are the emerging initiatives, what's being done already to attack the gender inequality issue in STEM. And so this is just a template. Sorry, can you see that? Yeah. And so for us, we used the ecosystem mapping. So we tried to decide, okay, so it's not just about women and girls lacking confidence, right? It's about how much the government is investing in women and girls. It's about our families. Do they expect us, to be primary caregivers at home? And maybe STEM is not a viable pathway for us. Or sometimes, like, my math teacher thought that boys were just naturally better in math than girls. And so we're trying to map out, not just from the women and girls perspective, but also from the government, from religious leaders, from our families, from schools and educators. And so what we were seeing is that there are outdated social norms that still exist, right? I mean, it's not just here, it's everywhere. Women and girls are underrepresented globally. There's still stereotypes. I mean, yes, we do have a lot of great examples, but we want more examples of this. And even there are women and girls that live in really rural areas that still don't even have access to mobile phones, right? Or have access to internet. So if you look at it from an intersectional approach, yes, maybe social norms are better in some areas, but it's not better in everywhere, right? So there's bias. And so from that, we decided, okay, so how are we going to tackle social norms and stereotypes? We're going to create these advocacy campaigns. We're going to raise awareness, bring awareness to the world about why social norms are harmful. What do social norms look like? And then the lack of role models, that's what we heard as well, is that there are not enough role models. We have maybe, sometimes we think of 5 people that who are women that have advanced in STEM, you know, like Marie Curie, pretty much women whose pictures are still black and white, right? But now we have like Mira Marathi, that's true, the CTO of ChatGPT. But again, we still need more role models, right? And role models that look like us. There are also structural barriers that we found. So this is what we were doing, right? We're doing an ecosystem mapping. We're looking at what are the structural barriers and how can we raise awareness of what the structural barriers are. So we decided we were going to write policy briefs. We're going to host dialogues, and we're going to advocate for more investments in education, more investments in women to have access to skilling and reskilling, and also to raise awareness that there's actually a gender funding gap in research. And I think the root cause, too, is that there's just not the information there. When we look at what data is being collected, it's not gender disaggregated. So when you look at how many people are in leadership, it's very hard to find how many women are in leadership, right? And there's also not a lot of information of what the gender wage gap is. We know in a lot of fields, for the same work, men get paid more than women, but that data isn't being really collected consistently. So how can policymakers make really informed decisions if they don't have this gender disaggregated data? The ecosystem, so this is our STEM ecosystem here, and our vision for this is that we want to be able for all the ecosystem actors to work together, right? Not just in silos. It's not enough for us to say we're going to, you know, have advocacy campaigns and we're going to have role models. That's not going to be enough, right, to increase the share of women and girls in STEM. We need the whole ecosystem, the system to work together to be able to bring awareness to the gender barriers, make access to STEM equal, and also to promote women and girls into leadership positions. Oops. Oh my gosh. Apologies. Okay. So I wanted to be able to show you the website, but I can't. But it's the stemforall.eurasia.undp if you want to go. And so once we wanted to bring all the interventions to one place. Because what happens is if you just stay in your own silo, if only companies are going to be looking at solutions, they're not going to be able to know how it's impacting the rest of the system. So to have it all in one website, that was one of our solutions to making sure that everyone understands the perspectives of all the different stakeholders. And our target audiences here were women and girls, governments, private sector, civil society, parents and caregivers, and educators. And then the 3 main things that we thought, okay, we need to inform. People are not informed about the various gender barriers in STEM. We want to connect people because there are people like you, all of you, that are already doing research and understand the situation of women and girls in science and technology, engineering, and mathematics. So we want to connect you all together. So we have this network that you'll see on the website. It's called the Systemness Network that I invite you all to be a part of. And this is a way to bring people, not just within Kazakhstan, but to connect you with other people in Central Asia and Eastern Europe to discuss the issues, to share best practices, to exchange knowledge, to be able to ask each other questions, because you're working on agriculture here, but there's also a lot of work being done in agriculture in the Netherlands where I live right now. And for you to be able to share experiences is going to be able to, you'll learn more, and you might be able to use some of the lessons that you learn from your peers here in a local context. And then the final thing is first we want to inform, second we want to connect, and then third we want people to act. So we have people on the ground, like CSOs, like nonprofit organizations or the UNDP. So we're working to really, to write policy briefs, to bring people together, government officials together to talk about it. But we also want private sector to do things. The private sector has a role to play. Private sector companies need to be also very aware of who is in their company, right? So we're trying to advocate for them to collect information on how many women work at your company, how many women leave, why do they leave, how much are they getting paid, so that they have this data to be able to say, oh, okay, there's only 20% in my company that are women, why is that? And to act upon that. And not only that, but to also create family-friendly policies. We know that women are the primary caregivers, right? And during the pandemic, there were a lot of women that lost their jobs. I know I had a hard time taking care of my kids while working full-time. And so we need companies to be able to advocate for their employees to have better work environment and better support for caregivers, maybe subsidies for childcare. And then we also want governments to come together and participate in these dialogues and learn from one another to understand, well, your Minister of Education already knows that gender inequality is really bad for the economy. And then we also want, educators to be educated. There are a lot of textbooks for for girls in schools where pictures, and most of the pictures in textbooks are men still. So when girls are at a really young age, they're only seeing pictures of men scientists or men mathematicians. And so we need to call on our ministries of education to revise the curriculum, and to make sure that it's gender responsive. If policymakers are saying, we want more women and girls in STEM, then the education, it also goes back to the classroom. And also teacher training, because teachers also have bias. Like my own teacher, right, who taught me calculus, had this implicit bias that boys were better than girls, and that's how it came out. Even though she wasn't like saying, you're really bad at math, but it really showed, and it really made me feel like, okay, stop. That I couldn't do math and I lost confidence. So I'm being told that I need to speed up. Sorry, I'm like going on and on. So that's how we apply systems research. And here are some other examples of systems thinking and research that might be interesting to you. So this one is at the Arizona State University and renewable energy. They have a solar plant, and they used a successful systems thinking approach. The plant's designed to use advanced technologies and integrate renewable energy with energy storage and demand management systems. The plant has not only reduced energy costs, but it also increased energy security and decreased greenhouse gas emissions. So again, this is a really good example of a systems. It's not just tackling the issue in front of you, but it's also interacting with the entire system. And then these are two other examples, one on proper drought control and digitalization of water use. And again, I can share with you my slides. So there are a lot of challenges in systems thinking, I have to say. It requires a real mind shift, a shift in your mindset and your approach, right? Because sometimes we only want to see things through our own perspective, and it's really like you're supposed to put yourself in other people's shoes. Like, how does the government think of this? How does the private sector think about this? How do my parents think about this? How is it being spoken about in the public? And to really be unbiased and focus on how each stakeholder interacts with each other. What are the interrelationships? Also, there's a need for interdisciplinary collaboration. It's really hard to collaborate across, even within UNDP, it's kind of hard to do that, right? Innovations team, and sometimes like people don't want to work with the gender team because it's not obvious, but we should work together as a system. And then it's also difficult to incorporate different perspectives. I may not agree with my colleagues, but I have to learn how to incorporate different perspectives and realize that that's the reality. And then there's this risk management of negative unintended consequences. Okay, but really they're the benefits, right? The problems we face are really interdependent, requires new ways of thinking and innovation, and really systems thinking is a really effective way for you to ask the right questions, to think of all the possibilities and relationships, and it may lead you to new partners, right? You might be able to think of somebody that you can work with that you may not have thought of. It may be someone that might, give you funding for that. When we decided that we really need to not just tackle women, but we need to start with girls, we forged a partnership with UNICEF, which is the UN agency that focuses on children, right? So, yeah, that's my speech about systems thinking. If you have any questions at all, I'm here, and we can talk about it on, while during coffee breaks, and I can share my slides, and I have a lot of papers that you can read about systems thinking. Thank you.
Наверное, химики и математики сейчас думают, как это я сейчас инкорпорировать буду, да, гендер. На самом деле мы считаем, что здесь сидят такие амбассадоры, да, послы от университетов. И когда вы вернетесь себе на работу, да, завтра, я думаю, что у вас точно есть коллеги, да, у которых есть потенциально проекты, да, вот, где вы могли бы вместе инициативу открыть. Либо есть коллеги, которые точно занимаются, есть в конце концов руководство, да, есть научные отделы. Все презентации, которые мы сегодня поделимся с вами вот в сжатом в таком виде, резюме, я надеюсь, что вы где-то на ученых советах, может, ваши руководители, поделитесь этими результатами. Вот. И сейчас позвольте пригласить уже вашу коллегу.